Hey everybody, and welcome back. Well, it is finally time for me to answer some of your questions. That's right, it's probably been about a month ago now. I called for questions and you guys sent them in. So now that our schedule has kind of slowed down a little bit, I thought I'd take a couple of minutes this afternoon to give you some of those answers that you're looking for. If you're interested to see what's going to happen, just stay tuned. As I shared with you just a moment ago, I did call for some questions, and so now I'm going to take some time to answer them. So you'll notice me looking down quite a bit. I'm just going to read these right off the bottom of that video. I also had some really great questions that came into me via email as well, but because I had so many questions that have come in, I'm actually going to split this up into two different videos because there were some really good questions and I can't wait to delve into them. Some of them actually deal with the supernatural. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts and opinions on all that, you will want to make sure you stay tuned for both parts of this Q&A. Starting now, just running right down the list, I'm going to begin answering the questions that came in on the video. The first question comes to us from Am Changing. She asks, what are your favorite makeup brands? Drugstore style, please. That's a good question because you guys know here at DeeVine DeeZine, also known as the Frugal Rev, I do try to go as inexpensively as possible when it comes to makeup. Once in a while I will splurge on some top name brands because after all, you know the old saying, you get what you pay for, and I have come to discover that some of the higher end makeup brands really do perform to the level that they claim. And so once in a while I will splurge, but for the most part, especially for makeup that I'm going to be wearing continuously a lot, then I go ahead and shop the drugstore because it really is the best place to get it. Specifically CVS, because when CVS has their deals going on with their ECBs and being able to match those with coupons, you can pick your makeup up there really cheap. And so that's my favorite place to go. Some of my favorite brands would include, of course, CoverGirl. The CoverGirl Outlast Foundation is what I wear most of the time. I'm not wearing that today. Today I am wearing that Itay powder foundation that you guys saw me do a review on. If I'm going to put makeup on just real quick and I just want a little bit of light coverage, then I'll go with that Itay. But for the drugstore brand that I use most of the time, it is the CoverGirl Outlast. Many of you have asked me about that in some videos, and I find that with my oily skin, that really does stay on the best and the longest, especially here in our Florida humidity, because when you add in that humidity with oily skin, then foundation can be a disaster. So that's my #1 favorite drugstore brand for foundations. Coming in right behind that is the Revlon Color Stay. That one also performs as well. They probably perform equally as well. The Outlast and the Color Stay probably are right there neck and neck. I tend to choose the CoverGirl over the Revlon just because of the color matching. Seems to match my color just a little bit better, but those would be my two favorite brands. As far as things like lipsticks, if I just want an inexpensive lipstick, because you know, if you apply lipstick quite often during the day, unless you get a good lip stain that's going to stay, you are applying multiple times in a day. I don't want to spend a whole lot for that, so I will go with the Wet n Wild, usually. I do love e.l.f. cosmetics. I love all of the cosmetics from e.l.f., and those are very inexpensive to pick up, and sometimes you can even pick them up in the Dollar Tree. We all know that. I do like some of the LA colors, but I don't tend to reach for them as often, just simply because their eyeshadows and all don't have quite the same color payoff as the Wet n Wild, in my opinion. So I tend to go with that over the LA colors. But if I had to choose just a couple of my favorite go-tos quite often, those would be the few that I reach for the most. Great question. If you could have lived in any other time period, what would it have been and why? This comes from the 2 Utes Transplanted. That is a really really good question. That is a good one. When I very first read this question about a month ago, I stopped and tried to think, wow, what time period would I have wanted to live in? Because every time period is so interesting and has so many different things to really experience, if that makes sense. You know, like you go through the time period of like when the early 1900s, you know, your vision goes right to like Little House on the Prairie days. I've always said that would have been a fun time to live in. I think that would have been so interesting yet challenging to grow your own food and all of that kind of stuff. You didn't have electricity, no television, no electronics. Life seemed to be a much slower pace. And I've always thought that would be cool, but I always also thought it would be cool to like live during the time of the knights, because I just love stories that are around that time period. I like to watch movies that are kind of around that same time period. I think it would have been really cool to have lived around the time that our nation was birthed, because there would be so many opportunities to be heroic in the founding and starting of a new nation and a new land. I would have definitely loved to have had a hand in that. Of course, the obvious would be to have lived during the time of Christ, because I would have loved to have actually been there with him when he was here with his earthly ministry during those 3 years, specifically during that time period. I would have loved to have lived during the time of the early church to watch the apostles in action, to see how they really set up the government and structure of what Christ had left for them to do. And I think that would have been neat. I would have loved to have lived all the way back when Adam and Eve did, because I would have loved to have been in that state of perfection in that garden where everything was free game for them. There was no sin yet, so there was no death, no weeds, no plants that were dying. It was just simply perfection. So if I had to pick a time period, I really don't think that I can narrow it down to just one, except to say that I am very excited to live in the time period that I am in right now, because I see so much potential to be a catalyst for change, and our world is in big trouble. Our culture is going crazy. It is going nuts, and I believe that God can certainly use me as well as many other people to be a catalyst for change in this time period. So it's an exciting time actually to just be alive right now. All right, another question that came in on the video comes from my friend Nessa, and she said, if there was another place you can live apart from Florida, where would it be, and what is your dream place to visit? That's a great one. That's really good. I've always, of course, wanted to visit Hawaii. That would be a dream, to visit the islands. I definitely would like to visit over there. I don't know of many people that don't have a dream to visit there at least once. But even more than that, I have always wanted to visit India. Always. I really have a big dream, I guess you could say, to visit India. I think that it would be really neat to visit that land, not only just to experience the culture that is over there, but because I know a lot of the religious beliefs that are prevalent in India, there's not a lot of Christ followers in India. There's not a lot of the faith of Christianity that is widespread in India, and that has just always been a dream of mine, to go there and to bring the light of Christ into that dark region. And I know some of you may be under the same belief system that many of them are in India, and I understand that there are many different people that watch my videos that may not be of the same faith as what I am, but I firmly believe that Jesus Christ is the truth, the life, and the way. And I really believe that that is a country that needs to see the light of Christ. And a lot of demonic strongholds need to be brought down over there. So if I could visit one place in the world, that has always been a dream in my heart. And the next part of their question was her question was, if you could live in any other place apart from Florida, where would it be? I don't think that I would want to live anywhere else besides Florida. I really don't. We have kind of talked about that a lot here in our family, because you always have. I have to be honest with you, I am definitely not happy or satisfied with the small town where we live in. We located here whenever I was in the end of the year of my 9th grade year of high school. I was 15, almost 15, would have been 15 that summer. And my dad, most of you already know, my dad is a preacher, and so we came here because he came here to take a church that was in this small town, and I hated every minute of it. For the first 2 weeks we were here, I sat in every class at that school crying, hating to be here. There was something about this place that I just did not like. Of course, I met my husband here. He's not originally from here either, but he kind of settled here and was happy here. And so when we got married, this is where he wanted to stay. We have had the opportunity a couple of times to leave, and then at the last minute, he just really felt like that wasn't something that he was prepared to do. So we kind of stayed, and I'm not happy in this small town, but when we have talked about, well, where would you want to live? Where would you want to go? I can't think of anywhere outside of Florida. I really, really do love it here. I love the sun. And believe it or not, I love the heat. I think I like the Panhandle a little better because their heat is a little different. It's a bit of a drier heat over there. It's not quite as humid as where we are, but I do love the heat. I love the sun. I love the beaches. I love the sand. I love the palm trees. I love everything about it. If I could choose, my dream place to live would be on a little bit of an island that would be right off of the coast of Florida, that we would have our own little bit of a secluded beach that we could just be on and do what we wanted every minute of every day, enjoying every moment of coastal life. I would really want to be on the coast if I could be. We're more inland. We're probably about 40 miles, I guess, from the nearest beach. So if I could choose, I would stay here in Florida, and I definitely would be in a more coastal area, but not necessarily a big city type coastal area, in more of a secluded, kind of laid back, yet still close enough to the city that you could enjoy city life and then retreat away to the seclusion as well. Okay, the next question comes to us from Mary Christopherson. And her question is, being one of your newer subscribers, I would like to know why you and your husband travel in some of your videos. Is it work or pleasure? That is a great question. Those of you that have been following the channel quite a while have probably already figured out a lot of the reasons why we travel. Sometimes we will take you with us when it is just pleasure, but a lot of times that we are traveling, it has to do with more ministry related stuff. I don't know that you would necessarily consider that work. You wouldn't necessarily consider it pleasure. It's a mixture of both, kind of, really. It's like an and, not an either or, but a and type thing. We travel a lot with our kids who are into the fine arts. We do a lot of that. If I ever do get asked to speak at other churches, we do travel for that. That question has been asked, are we willing to speak at other places? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. There are a lot of times that we have taken you with us whenever my husband has gone off for business, and of course I will travel with him as often as I can. Matter of fact, I don't think that there has been a trip yet that I have not been able to go on for him whenever he goes for work. So there are times that he will have to go for training with the sheriff's department, that they will send him away, and then I've kind of got the more pleasure side of that in the hotel or by the pool during the daytime while he's in classes. So it's kind of a mixture of both, and that's why you see that we do quite a bit of traveling around here during the year. Okay, now the next few questions have come into me from Anastasia. or Anastasia. I'm not real sure how you say that. I would say Anastasia, so I hope that I got that right. She sent me in actually several great questions. Some of her email questions I'm going to save for part 2 because they are very in-depth questions that I know probably will take me a while to answer, but I'm really excited about answering those. There are a few of those on here though that I think that I can squeeze into this video, and we'll go ahead and get them on part number 1. The first question that she sent in to me was, have you ever been trained such as cosmetology classes, or are you quite simply an awesome natural when it comes to nail art? I am just self-trained, self-taught, I guess. If you want to consider that a natural, then maybe so. Whenever I was very young, I fell in love with nail polish and nail art design. So from as far back as I can remember, as whenever I finally reached the age where I could paint my own nails, I started painting my own nails. And I would just do whatever it took to come up with different designs, because obviously you guys probably can tell by my personality that I'm just one of those very expressive people. And one of the ways that I was able to express myself was through adding art to my nails. As I got a little bit older and just trying to kind of tweak the art just a little bit, I did begin to watch several YouTube videos. One of the people that I love the most out of all of the nail art channels that I've seen is Love4Nails. I'll have her linked for you down below. I fell in love with her channel and her designs. She does everything pretty much free-handed, and she is just such a great artist that she really inspired and challenged me to go a little bit farther with the nail art and to experiment a little bit more with different techniques. So everything that you have seen me do, it is just stuff that either I had in my own brain that I was able to figure out how to put on to the nails, or techniques that I have watched other people do through YouTube videos and things like that. So, great question. The next question that she said, have you ever worked at a salon as a nail manicurist? If not, would you ever consider doing so since you already own your own materials? I have not ever worked at a salon or done anything to make money with nail art. I have done nail art for several people just as a favor, as a friend. We have scheduled different fundraisers when our kids were raising funds for different kind of things, where I would participate with nail art type things that people would pay for as a fundraiser, not to me personally. And I have had several people mention to me the possibility of working in a salon because they think that my designs would be good enough to do that. I just honestly don't think I would have the patience for that, only because it takes a long while. When I do a design on myself, if it's an intricate design, it can take me up to 2 hours to get a design completed, and that's even with using gel polish that I can cure right away. If I am doing it using regular nail lacquer, it can take a whole day because you have to wait in between for everything to dry. When I do a nail art design on someone else, I can squeeze the time down a little bit, but it still will take a good hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half to get a design to the way that I like it, because I am a little bit of a perfectionist and I don't like to leave things looking tacky and undone. So because it takes so long and leaning over, I mean, I've even tried, like with doing my daughter's nails, propping things up on the table to kind of lift her hands a little higher to keep me from having to lean so much. And it just doesn't seem to work as well. And by the time I get done with a design, my back is quite tired. I don't see how people really can do it all day, every day. Matter of fact, there was a lady that I used to watch on YouTube. I have not watched her in a very long time. Robin Moses. A lot of you who are into nail art will probably know that name. She even had to have surgery because of some of the physical problems that had been caused by her continuously leaning, doing nail art designs. It is very strenuous on the body. So if I had to, as a very last resort to help my family, then obviously, yes, I would. But no, it wouldn't be something that I'd be in a hurry to do. It is strictly a hobby, and doing it occasionally is much more up my alley than doing it every day. The next question that she sent in is, what do you enjoy best about the art of nail decorating? I think just the creative process and looking at a design when I get finished and stepping back and saying, wow, that expresses who I am. I think that is the most satisfying thing of nail art, because as I've already said, I am very expressive. If you're around me for any amount of time, you will certainly learn that right away, that I am a very expressive person. And that's just one of the ways that I can kind of take what's in my brain and get it out there for people to see. I've never actually painted on canvas, although I do have a couple of things in mind that I do want to try to paint for my home. I have painted walls in my home, and I've painted walls for other people in their homes. I've painted some decor at the church, different things like that. I have painted banners and different things like that. But as far as like sitting down to do like a masterpiece and art on canvas, I haven't really tried my hand at that yet, but I really want to. And I think that doing the nail art over the last couple years has kind of given me an incentive to give it a try. The next question that she sent in: do you feel that your nail work is another form of artistic expression for you? And yes, I think I just answered that. I absolutely do. I really do. And kind of sometimes the more bold, the brighter, the more odd, the better. I definitely am not shy when it comes to colors or design or all the bling. The blingier, the better. I love it. And I love to see it on other people as well. You know, I'm constantly noticing people's nails whenever I'm out and about, and I'll often comment on their designs if they're really cool. And I just think it's just super cool. I just love it. The last set of questions that she has here all have to do with being a Floridian. So, number one, she says, what do you enjoy most about living in Florida, and what do you dislike the most about it? What do I love the most about living in Florida? The sunshine, and yeah, the sunshine. That is my number one thing that I love about being here. Whether it's in my own backyard, whether it is over at the beach, whether it's on one of the many lakes that we live near here, I love the sun. I am the kind of person that if I am in, we have visited the mountains several times, and when we have stayed down like in the valley of the mountains, there are certain parts of the day when the sun does not really peek through very much, because obviously it's behind the peaks of the mountains, and the mountains cast those big shadows down in the valleys. And I'm the kind of person that I can get depressed really quickly if I don't have a lot of sunshine. Matter of fact, whenever I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I usually do is go around the house opening up all the blinds to get all the sun starting to come into the house. I have to have a lot of sunshine, and that's just what I love about it the most. It is sun. Even whenever we have rainy and stormy days here, yeah, you could have a day that is kind of rainy and overcast most of the day, but those are very rare. Even for us, it's like the thunderclouds may roll in about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and even if they settle in for the rest of the evening, you've had the whole bright morning and early afternoon sun. You know, you can get out there in the pool and you can lay out in that sunshine for a good 4 or 5 hours before the rain rolls in. And so even though we do get a lot of rain here, usually, the last couple summers have been a little dry, but you still get so much sun. As a matter of fact, our weather down here can be so temperamental that it can be shining super bright and raining at the same time without seemingly a cloud in the sky. So that's what I would have to say that I love the most about living here. And what do I dislike the most? I really don't know that I could find anything that I dislike the most about living in Florida. I hate sand gnats, and I hate the yellow flies that come out during the summer. I hate the mosquitoes, but I don't think that those are things that are indigenous here to Florida. So I mean, you can experience those anywhere you live, right? If you're near a swamp or any of that kind of stuff. So I really don't think that I could pick one thing that I don't like about living here. I really do consider this my little paradise, and I am quite happy being a Floridian. Next, she says, what stereotype of Florida do most people seem to get wrong? And what about of Floridians? What are their opinions of Floridians that they get wrong? I think probably the stereotype that I would have to think about our state would be really probably the vacation aspect of it. Like vacation is, or Florida is nothing but beaches and vacation. And that is very far from true. Yes, we do have a lot of vacation spots here. We do have a lot of places where people who love to travel like to come and see here in our state. Obviously, people love to come from all over the world to see the famous Florida beaches, but there is so much more to Florida besides that. There are some genuinely hard-working people here, some innovative people here. There is some industry here. And I think that people have the idea that being in, it's kind of like people think of Hawaii the same way, like, oh, that's just a little island paradise and it's nothing but big vacation all the time. And I think that would have to be the stereotype about Florida that I think most people get wrong, because it's really not just all play and all vacation for those of us who live here. It's only that way for those who come for a week or two at a time and are here for that purpose. So what do I think that people have a misconception about Floridians? I guess it would have to be probably along that same line, that we're all on vacation all the time and don't have an intellectual thread to our being that could do anything to promote growth in our culture, if that makes sense. We are very hardworking people who live and work and survive just like the rest of the country does. It just so happens that we might can put our toes in the sand at the end of the evening as we watch the sun go down. The last question that she has about being a Floridian, she says, as an educator, I am interested in what you most dislike about Florida public schools. Common Core. That's an easy one. I do not have an opinion one way or the other about homeschool, because families have various reasons for making that choice in her state where she lives. I do not like the philosophies that I see pumped out in the public school system, and not just here in Florida, but everywhere. I don't like the fact, and I've shared this with you guys before when we shared our homeschooling story. We have a whole little series. I think there were 3 or 4 videos that the kids and I did together for you guys to tell why we chose homeschooling, what they think about it, and all that kind of stuff. And in that series, I did mention about the total disregard for authority that we see in the public schools. And it's not just here in Florida. However, I can only speak comfortably about our situation because this is where I am. My husband does work for the sheriff's department, and part of his job is overseeing all of the deputies that are inside of our schools. First of all, I think it's sad that our culture has gotten to the point that it has in the public school system, that a deputy is needed at a campus every day, all day. There is something wrong when that is a requirement in our culture. And I know it's not just here. You know, there are school resource officers all over the country that are stationed inside of schools. But, you know, I grew up in an environment to where, yeah, we may have had a fight or two after school, and you always had a little bit of a ruckus here or there, but we did not need law enforcement on our campuses all day long to keep us in line, because our teachers had full authority to do that. And we have just seen over the last several decades a constant decline in the amount of control that teachers and principals and the staff of a school really have over the students in that school. And students have gone wild. They've gone crazy, and a lot of the teachers cannot or will not control it for fear of bodily harm even to themselves. You know, when you hear stories about a 14-year-old child who's able to grab the teacher by the head and drag her out, rape her, and kill her on the back of school property, something is wrong. And teachers are becoming a lot more afraid to implement rules and to really administer discipline the way that they used to years ago. And that is what I really hate, and I do not like the Common Core curriculum. And I know that that is not something specifically to the Florida school system. Again, that is something that is done nationwide, but I don't I don't like the philosophies of what they're teaching our kids. I don't like how they are removing much of our history that is so vitally important for these kids to learn. Without knowing history, you will repeat it. And there's just so many things that I could go into, and I could probably spend a whole hour's worth of video on what I hate about the public school system, but I will just have to leave it there. Otherwise, this video will get too long. There's just a lot of stuff that we see from the inside because my husband is so involved in it from the law enforcement perspective. And I do have several friends who are teachers, and we support them and we pray for them. They have a big job to do, and you know, their hands are tied a lot by what the school board will allow them to do or what the state will allow them to do. And even though they have a big desire to make effective changes in their schools, their hands are tied and their resources are very limited. So that's what I hate the most about the public school system, at least here in the area around me. And that's all we're going to answer here in part number 1. I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all of you who sent these questions in. It's always so much fun to see what you guys are interested in knowing about your favorite YouTubers, whatever kind of questions that come in that you guys want to know. It's really super fun. So thank you so much for submitting these questions. I hope that you will stay tuned for part number 2. Part 2 is going to be very fun and interesting as we tackle some of those spiritual and more paranormal type questions. That one is going to be a blast. I want to thank all of you for taking time to watch, and I will see you in the next video.